Hey there, everyone. Thanks for joining me here this afternoon. Just wanting to do a little bit of a weather update since I spent my newsletter today talking about other things than current weather going on around the country and around the globe. So let's hop right into it. So I'm going to share my screen here. And we're going to start off by looking at just a big picture of the radar of what's going on currently around the country. And it's slow, but hopefully it's going to come up here. There we go. So we actually have a quieter weather situation going on today than we have in the last number of days. There are scattered thunderstorms here across the southern and eastern parts of the United States, with a few severe thunderstorm warnings, the yellow polygons, and some special weather statements advising of gusty winds and maybe some small hail, the brownish polygons. And then up here in the upper Midwest, we have a severe thunderstorm watch that's now in effect for northern Minnesota and parts of eastern North Dakota. But for the most part, and compared to over the weekend when we were, we had close to 2,000 reports of severe weather, it's quite a bit quieter today. One of the things that we are still relatively concerned about today, well, before I get into that, let's just talk real quick about the severe weather risk, just to kind of bring that to a close. It does look like the greatest risk of severe weather today is in the upper Midwest, where we have that new watch issued with a decent threat of some wind and hail, as well as a lower risk of tornadoes. For the rest of the country, there is a risk of some pulse severe thunderstorms in this mid-south region and over the mid-Atlantic. But again, not to completely minimize the severe weather risk, because there obviously are some areas we need to be keeping an eye on compared to the last several days. It should be less active. So one thing that we are keeping an eye on today is the flash flooding risk, because we do have a moderate risk of flash flooding in the New York area into southern New England, with a surrounding slight risk around into the mid-Atlantic and into parts of the lower Great Lakes region. And basically what we've just got here is a very moist atmosphere with some disturbances rotating through and causing some scattered thunderstorm activity like we saw on the radar earlier. But we are expecting another increase in some of that activity later this afternoon into tonight. And you can see here, this is the probability of 5 inches or more of rainfall over the next 24 hours. And you can see here in the mid-Atlantic, and then especially across extreme southern New England into the New York and Philly areas, there are decent risks for heavier rainfall. And one of the things that's of particular concern in here is that this area has seen some heavy rainfall the last 24 hours. If we look at the 24-hour rainfall from the multi-radar, multi-sensor system, you can see there's some pockets here of 5+ inches of rain in parts of northeast Pennsylvania, southern New York, here on the coast of Long Island. Not quite as heavy, but some heavier amounts here of 2 to 5 inches across parts of Pennsylvania, and in some of the areas down here across the mid-Atlantic. So again, this isn't a situation where there's going to be like widespread, 5 to 10 inch rainfall amounts, but there probably will be some localized amounts like that, and where they overlap urban areas, overlap some of these areas that have already had heavier rainfall over the last day or two, there could be some rather significant flash flooding. So that's something we'll be keeping an eye on going into this afternoon and tonight. So the heat has gradually been waning across the eastern United States the last few days. It's still plenty hot from the mid-Atlantic down into the southeast, and we have widespread major pockets of extreme heat risk in this region. But as we go through the next several days, what we're really going to start focusing on is the increasing risk for heat in the western United States. And if we take a look at the forecast 500 millibar pattern, and I'm in the wrong place here. I got us in Europe. Let's take a look at the US. We are going to take a look at Europe here before we're done. But if we look at the United States, this is what we've got going on at 500 millibars. So we're like at 18,000 feet above the ground. And you can see the high pressure dome in the east has been breaking down. We've got this little weak area of low pressure aloft across the Great Lakes and Mid-South, which are driving some of the thunderstorm activity I talked about earlier. And then out to the west, we've got behind that little area of low pressure, we've got a building ridge of high pressure starting to develop across the Four Corners region. And if we go through time, we see that high pressure area kind of expands and builds west across the southwest, and that's going to drive some excessive heat in the southwest. They're going to have their first prolonged stretch here in July of really hot temperatures with desert locations, including Phoenix, getting up to 110 or higher for several days. But then as we go into the weekend and the first part of next week, as this trough of low pressure, this was the forecast for Saturday morning, as this trough of low pressure develops along the eastern Pacific and off the west coast, we're going to see this downstream area of high pressure over the southwest really expand and build to the northeast. And by the time we get into the first part of next week, we're looking at a really large, unseasonably strong area of upper level high pressure encompassing much of the central 2/3 of the country, I guess would be the best way to put it, with the center up here over like the northern plains and northern part of the central plains. Couple things to just talk about here real quick. This high pressure center in the most recent few runs of the model, the center of it has shifted a little more to the northeast. It had been being shown a little more back toward Colorado and Wyoming, and now the center is forecast to build more into South Dakota, Nebraska area. And what that likely means is that the heat will extend even farther to the northeast, and we could really see some serious heat in like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, but then also well back into the west. You can see this is a very large dome of high pressure. So back into Salt Lake City and some of the Intermountain West, we're looking at some extreme heat as well. So that looks like kind of the next building heat wave that we're really going to be keeping an eye on here. Now, one interesting thing about this change in where the high pressure center looks like it's going to set up is this probably also means a little bit more of an influx of monsoonal moisture into the southwest eventually, probably especially as we go into next week. And there's pros and cons with that. Obviously, the pro is you potentially can get some wetting rainfall. The con is you also get an increase in thunderstorm activity, which can lead to lightning and also winds that can cause issues with firefighting. So we'll be watching that balance as we go into next week. But as you see here, that initial map I was showing for the high pressure, this was Monday afternoon, so essentially a week from today. And as we go into Wednesday and even into the end of next week, that high pressure center is very persistent. And as we get farther out in time, there's more uncertainty in the models. So where exactly the strongest core of this heat dome will be by the time we get into the later part of next week is obviously uncertain, but it certainly is a strong signal to indicate that there's going to be a prolonged period of hot weather and potential record heat in parts of the Intermountain West, Northern Rockies, Upper Midwest, and Northern Plains, and into parts of even the Midwest and Central Plains. So let's, I also want to take a quick look at Europe, because, Europe is just getting out of the, really one of the all-time heat waves that Western and Central Europe have had, which eventually shifted into parts of Eastern Europe. And now there's another heat wave building across the region. We can see here, this is the 500 millibar pattern forecast for Wednesday evening European time. You can see a really unusually strong area of upper level high pressure across Western Europe and up here into the UK. And as we go through time, we do get a low pressure system that kind of tries to undercut it into the Iberian Peninsula, but across France, Western Europe, up into Western Scandinavia, you can see we have this upper level high pressure area, and it basically, at least currently in the model world, hangs in there as a new center of high pressure develops by early next week from Northwest Africa across Western Europe. So if we look at 850 millibar temperatures, so essentially we're looking a few thousand feet up just to get an idea of what the low level temperatures may look like. You can see well above normal temperatures here across much of Western Europe and the UK. France seems to be the center of all of this. You can just see that there's persistent, well above normal temperatures across France for days and days. And again, as we get farther out here, we're out 10 days now. There's more uncertainty in the model, so you tend to don't get as much of the extremes, but there's definitely still a very strong signal here for above normal temperatures across a good part of Western Europe, even going into the end of next week. And the other issue here, at least right now, the models are showing that this is going to be a pretty dry pattern for most of Europe as well. And, France and other parts of Europe are dealing with significant wildfire activity. And unfortunately, at least through 10 days, there's not a ton of precipitation. Now, having said that, this is showing relative to normal. So, there is going to be some precipitation in this period, especially in the vicinity here, potentially of Portugal, down here where this upper level low pressure system is forecast to develop. And certainly we'll see, some thunderstorm activity at times across parts of Europe, but the overall trend appears to be toward below normal precipitation for much of the continent and well above normal temperatures. So last but not least, I want to take a quick look at the tropics, and we're just going to do that by looking at the global deep mind. This is the Google forecast here, and we're going to start off by looking here at Typhoon Bavi is how I've been pronouncing it. I'm not 100% sure that's right, but you can see here that the DeepMind model is showing a general track to the west-northwest, and it maintains a very strong intensity here, category 3, 4, 5, basically a major hurricane equivalent as the storm gets to the vicinity of Taiwan. Now, the DeepMind model here shows the track going just to the north of Taiwan and eventually into eastern mainland China. There is a fair amount of uncertainty as we get farther out in time. Some of the other AI models have a track more towards and regular models have a track more toward Taiwan. Some have a track that starts to bend off a little more toward Japan. So there's obviously we're talking out here, we're talking like 6 to 7 days out, but definitely this is a system that we're going to have to continue to keep a close eye on. I haven't really seen a lot of reports yet out of the Mariana Islands. Rota was the main island that was really hit hard, but I have seen some video of quite a bit of flooding and damage on Guam and Tinian. So hoping that things went as well as possible there. Outside of Bavi, right now the tropics are pretty quiet. But as we go through time, it does look like we start to see signals for a system to develop in the Western Pacific behind Bavi, and eventually start to see some signals of some increasing activity in the central and especially in the Eastern Pacific. Now we're talking 9 days out, so we're still out there in the long range, but maybe starting to see some increase in activity here off the west coast of Mexico, where it's actually been relatively quiet much of the hurricane season, definitely below normal activity to this part of the season. The Atlantic is pretty well dead in the model world anyway for the next 10 days. And, July is usually a pretty quiet period in the tropics in a normal year. So in a below normal year, not a big surprise to see that the tropics are looking, the Atlantic tropics are looking pretty quiet as of right now. So I do think that's all I have for today. Have had plenty of weather going on in the last couple of weeks. Maybe seeing just a little bit of quieter setup this week. There will be some severe weather risks as we go through the week, and I'll be talking about some of that in posts as we go on. But again, for today, probably the bigger risk is keeping an eye on whether or not we have any more significant flooding situations develop in the Northeast, watching the severe weather in the upper Midwest, and then keeping an eye on building heat from the Southwest this week up into the northern and central parts of the country by early next week. So that's going to do it for today. Thanks everybody for your support of Balanced Weather, and we will talk soon.